Everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Beware number 5, continuing our look at these wonderful 70s Marvel comics, which reprinted 50s pre-code Atlas comics. So for the most part, every now and then they'd reprint some stories after 55, but luckily this one is all pre-code. I was going to say goodness, but it's more like badness, because not in quality, but just bad things happen in these comics. They're mostly horror comics, and obviously they were, trying to follow the footsteps, the very high level of quality that EC Comics had. They fell a lot farther short of that, like most of those knockoffs. But there's still some amazing stuff in here. Bizarre, creepy, weird shit going on. This cover is by Ron Wilson, pencils, and Mike Esposito, inked. Now, Grand Comic Database says John Romita alterations. I have no idea what he did to this cover. I have a feeling it's the face, though, because I love this old lady here. That face is really great. And I was just like, I never would have guessed this is either Ron Wilson or Mike Esposito. Ron Wilson was pretty much a hack. He just learned that Marvel style, that crappy 70s Marvel style, and that's pretty much all he did. And Mike Esposito, maybe I didn't read enough of his comics in his 50s heyday and 60s, but yeah, he never really added much as an inker. I don't remember ever reading a comic inked by Mike Esposito and saying, oh, wow, that was some nice inking. But this face is amazing. See, this looks like Ron Wilson and Mike Esposito, this young lady. But so I assume that's John Romita. But to be honest, this looks better than John Romita is capable of drawing. I love John Romita, on Spider-Man. I love that clean, kind of fun art. But this was amazing to me. So I just wanted to point that out. I was quite shocked when I looked up Grand Comic Database and said, what? So it's probably John Romita, that face. But it's still surprising. So we start off with The Old Lady's Son. That's a very dull title for a horror comic. And basically there's a young woman named Lily Wells. She was a scheming young woman intent on using her beauty to gain riches. So she sees an ad in the London Times, and it says, wanted, young woman companion, Mrs. E. Mason, wishes to hire a young, attractive companion, which is kind of a weird ad. Like, I'd be like, oh, I'm not answering that. But this is just what she's been looking for. And she's like, all right, this could be my ticket to ride. So she goes to meet the old lady, and the old lady's a little creepy. She's talking about how pretty she is and touching her face. And on the way to her mansion, she basically tells her about her son. She won't shut up about her son and how great he is and special. And I just want to point out this panel. I don't know why I love this panel so much. I'm always kind of drooling over Flora in this channel. I don't know, just the way, like, using the tree in the foreground like this weird arcing tree. Just really like that panel. For the most part, as you can see, it's very, typical 50s Atlas comic art. Kind of perfunctory. It does the job. But it's not bad by any means. But it's also not that, nothing to write home about. So they get to her mansion, the old lady's mansion. Guys, I wanted to point this out. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but in these 70s comics, this is how different America was. Now, comics were considered children's fare. Most of the ads, almost all of them were, reaching out to children, trying to sell kids stuff. So these T-shirt ads, which were very popular in the 70s, and, they've got Spider-Man T-shirts, you can buy Popeye, Keep On Truckin'. But then they have Panama Red, so basically celebrating marijuana use. And this was okay. Like, they didn't mind selling that to kids. And I saw one, it was in a normal comic. They actually had a t-shirt design, and it was a pig mounting another pig, and it said "Makin' Bacon." And I was like, that's so fucking weird. Oh, that was the name of the company, Roach. So yeah, these Roach company ads are in a lot of these comics. And it's just kind of amazing, you know. Kids weren't as overly protected as they are now. Then again, they probably all grew up to be drug addicts and perverts. So maybe, I'm just kidding. Not everyone did. So she gets to the mansion. She's getting a creepy feeling about this place. There's some door upstairs she's never supposed to go into. It's locked. I think that's where the son lives. One day, this guy comes to deliver some shit. And he says, you're the new girl, huh? Poor girl. There've been 3 before you, all young and pretty, and they all disappeared and were found drained of their blood out in the woods. So the old lady says, kind of chases him off. And she says, these people in town, they, we keep to ourselves here. So they make up all these stories about us. Don't listen to that claptrap. But of course, she's like, ay. But she's greedy. So she's going to see this through so she can get her payday. And she really lays it on thick. She basically says, I feel like you're the mother I never had. Or, I'm closer to you than my own mother. And just the way you've been talking about your son, I feel like I've grown to love him without ever having seen him. And the old lady's thrilled. And she's like, I'm so glad. You'll meet him soon. You'll love him. So one night she wakes up that night to this horrible scream. Gag. She gets up and the old woman says, my son has come home. I guess the son was away. And that's why she hasn't seen him. She calls him a superior being. And Lily's starting to get a little scared. She's like, maybe I'll meet him tomorrow. And she says, no, you must meet him now. And she shoves him in shoves Lily into the room, his room. And she screams, "Aye!" when she sees the visage of the son. They don't even show it to us. But you can tell by her face and her scream that it must be horrible. She runs out the door. The grandma tries to grab her and misses. She locks herself in her room. And I didn't point this out earlier, but there's bars on all the windows. The old lady said it was to keep burglars out, but now we know why. And basically she's yanking at the bars, and I don't know why she's talking out loud. I mean, I do know it's exposition, but she's saying, he's banging at the door, smashing it. He could break through in any second. I'm done for. And then we see outside the room, the door has been smashed open. Ah! And the old lady says, at last my son has attracted another wife. Congratulations, my son. Hey. And look at that crazy looking scary face there. I swear to God, it's so tame, the story. I had to look it up. I thought it was maybe postcode, because you don't even see the monster, let alone like any gore or anything. So it's a very subdued pre-code horror comic. But I gotta say, these last 2 panels, I thought the way they told the story, I was just like, this is pretty scary. Like, she's just waiting for the guy to break down the door, and then we see he's obviously out of sight. He's doing horrible things to her. So next we have The Horrible House. Another pretty dumb title for a horror comic, not very scary. Now, this one blew me away, guys, because I've never heard of this artist before. Al Eadeh, Eadeh. Maybe that's how it's pronounced. I don't know. I didn't mention on the first story and this story, Grand Comics Database has no idea who did the script, which probably means nobody knows if they don't know. So I think every story in here, we don't know who wrote them. But we do know this artist. And guys, this guy's a revelation to me. He's amazing. He's like very like a primitive artist, almost like an outsider artist. It's just crazy stuff. So we meet this guy here, and let me see if I can get his name real quick. That's Mr. Belding. So Belding, he's a rich guy. But he has this horrible fear, a recurring dream about nuclear war and the city's being blown up. But even more specifically, he has a nightmare of his house, or any house, caving in on top of him. I guess that's his big fear. And guys, look at this art. Look at that face there. And just these buildings just kind of dashed off. I don't know, there's something about this that, I mean, it's very underground comic-y to me. And also Mondo Golden Age shit, you know, like Fletcher Hanks, that kind of shit. But, oh God, this artist is nuts. I kind of love it. Look at his face there. So he's tired of living in fear. And he basically sells his mansion in the city because he figures, you know, living in the city, that's ground zero. He buys some land out in the boonies. Look at him here, this little squat guy. And the contractor tells him, he says, this land is totally not good for building on. It's soft. The ground is soft. It won't support the foundation. And he's a dumb rich guy who's just like, oh, nonsense. Just work harder. Get it done. And build a fence around my place. Now look at this here. Remember what I said about these comics all trying to rip off EC? That is so, like, kind of a weird version of Graham Ingalls going on. But it almost looks like Tim Boxall and Graham Ingalls collaborated. It's got that creepy weirdness of the Horror Underground guys. But that is so Graham Ingalls. But not good Graham Ingalls. Like, Graham Ingalls on a very bad day. So he has the place stocked with food. It's basically a giant fallout shelter. It's a giant mansion that's ready for nuclear war. Look at this face here. That panel's amazing. Look at that. It's crazy. So, Mr. Belding goes to bed one night, and he started to hear voices. And he says, I don't understand. The fence alarms haven't gone off. I can definitely hear these voices. And then, guys, I love this. These silhouette ghosts, like silhouettes of ghosts, but they are the ghosts, though they look like silhouettes. Just such bizarre, amazing, interesting shapes going on here. And then they turn into these guys. I love these designs. Look at these creepy, ghouly guys. I guess, and they tell him, they're like, you built your house on top of an old graveyard. The reason why you didn't know is because all the gravestones sunk into the soft ground. But, you know, now we're haunting you. And they're kind of friendly, though. They're like, you'll get to like us once you get to know us. And, of course, Belding is like, no, look at this, these two. That is just weird art. It's just very bizarre. And so Belding's freaking out. Look at that hand with the rotted skin. That's a great hand. And so he runs to the front door. The house has already started sinking. In fact, it's sunken so much that a bunch of earth just kind of blorps through the door. So the first floor is underground. So he runs upstairs. He figures, I'll jump out the window in the second story. But it's too late. The earth has already gotten higher than the window. And he can't escape. And, of course, he's just left pounding against the dirt, saying, no, help me, I have to get out, I have to get out, just like his nightmares. A few days later, some people come by, and all they see is the chimney. That's all that's left. And they're like, oh, that Belding was quite a crafty fellow. He was actually building an underground house, like a fallout shelter. Brilliant. Oh, look at that face there. I want to find more of this guy so bad. This art is just crazy fun. Next we have Bong. And I don't want to hear any stupid Cheech and Chong type jokes about this story, people. So, and it doesn't star Dr. Bong from Howard the Duck either. But I really like this opening, like that logo. Just everything about this is just like nice design here. This artist is named Tony DiPreta. Once again, unknown writer. And once again, also, kind of lackluster, this guy. But some of these artists that aren't that great, it almost makes the stories creepier. Just like those cheapo 70s exploitation movies, they're creepier and scarier than any like $70 million budgeted horror movie that Hollywood can make. Because it's just, there's something off about it. And it's just not quite right. And I don't know, I find sometimes some of these stories I find like really kind of chilling and weird, and they stick with me. And if they were drawn like beautifully, I don't think they would as much. I know it sounds weird, but this is because the art's kind of grotesque. So it, just like Graham Ingalls, Graham Ingalls would kind of, some of the faces were slightly off. Everyone looked a little mentally unstable in those comics. So we see this guy Hugo. He's a rich dude who lives in Hungary. And this guy has a weird, not phobia, but he's very sensitive to noise. He hates noise. And so we see him caught in a thunderstorm. It's freaking him out just because of the lightning and the thunder. So he makes it to his house. He's panting. That's how terrified he is of loud sounds. So later on, before that, he's got a butler there. And he sits there thinking, he's like, what man in Hungary has finer taste than I? The best house, bedecked in the best objects of art. And the one thing I'm lacking is my beautiful Katrine. Katrine is this local woman he's in love with. She doesn't love him, but, he feels entitled to her love because he's rich. So, and then his butler drops a tray, shattering a glass. Of course, it makes a sound like a crash. And this guy freaks out. He says, I've told you before. Silence must be observed in this house. And the poor butler's like, no, master, please. It was an accident. And Hugo picks up like a cane and starts beating him. Senseless. God. So obviously Hugo's a bad guy, a very, very bad man. Now, meanwhile, we cut away to Katrine and the man she does love. And he's this guy named Eric. And Eric is the local bell maker. I guess that's a job. Somebody has to make bells, right? So he has a little factory. He makes bells. And she tells him, like, yeah, I want to be with you, but my father really wants me to marry... I forgot his fucking name already. Hansel? Hugo. And she says, he's rich. And my father really wants me to marry him because he's way richer than you. God, look at this kind of Mongo art. There's some weirdly weird panels in here. Yeah, not a big fan of this Tony DiPretta guy. Though I do like the way he draws Hugo. So Hugo comes to visit Katrine, and she really just does not like him at all. But she has to be polite for her father's sake. And she tells him, she says, no, I'm going to marry this other guy, Eric. He's the man I love. So Hugo, of course, says, well, I guess I'm going to have to kill him then. And then she'll have to marry me. So he sneaks into his bell factory, and he sees like the smoldering metal in a giant cauldron or whatever you call that thing. And I guess the sounds of him traipsing about the factory wake up Eric, who lives in the attached apartment. I forgot to mention, I love this when he opens the window, there's just a bat flying by in the factory. So back to the story. Eric sees the shadowy form of Hugo. He doesn't know who it is. Hugo attacks him, tries to push him into the molten metal, and he accidentally falls in. So Eric calls the authorities. He says, yeah, I don't know who he was, but he fell right into the molten metal, and they have him pour it out to see if there's any remains. There's not a trace of him. He's been incinerated completely. Not even a bone or a tooth. So all of a sudden, of course, Hugo Walther disappears. Nobody connects the two stories. And so weeks later, the bell for the new city hall was completed. And Hugo's imprisoned soul became part of the bell. So we see his face on the bell. And, of course, every 60 minutes, that huge bell rings out the hour. How ironic. A man who hates loud noises, and now his soul is trapped in a giant bell that rings every hour. Such irony. This story is so dumb. I love how his face is in the bell. He's like, oh no. Bong, 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 bong. But sometimes I like these stories that are this bad too, because they're pretty funny. This is just so dumb. Like, everyone wants to have that ironic EC twist ending. All these companies, when they did horror comics, they just totally stole the EC model. Like, oh, this guy hates this, so that's how he's going to die. That's the irony. Now, this one, guys, is totally different. In fact, I don't think EC would ever publish a story like this. This is, you can only die once. And this story is really weird. It's almost like some weird experimental film by, I don't know, some avant-garde filmmaker or something. This is drawn by Manny Stallman. I think we've seen his name before. He did work all throughout the Golden Age. And even like as late as the 60s, he did some stuff for Wallywood's Thunder Agents at Tower Comics. So this guy had quite a career. Very interesting style. It almost looks like some 80s alternative cartoonist, This guy could have been a backup character in Lloyd Llewellyn or, I don't know, some random Fantagraphics title. This style is very kind of weird. Well, very weird. But also, I don't know, some of these, like, I love that panel. It almost is like Charles Burnsy or something. So, it says, did you ever hate everything so much that you felt like killing yourself? No? Well, if you ever do, remember that George Anders found out that you can only die once. And the very first panel is this guy, George, shooting himself in the head. And he's saying, die, why don't I die? I keep shooting myself in the head. I just want to die. And it's the day of his 30th birthday, and he decided to kill himself. But then he finds out that he can't. The worst part is though every time he shoots himself in the head, he feels the horrible pain, but he's still alive. We see this montage of him shooting himself in the head over and over, trying to kill himself, but it doesn't work. The bullets made no mark on him, but they hurt like hell. So he had to find another way. So he finds a piece of rope. And he says, I'm going to hang myself. He does. He hears his neck snap. And yet he's still alive. Of course, he has to feel all the pain of it, though. And then it gets even more kind of surreal. His three friends come in the door. And they're all drunk. And we can tell they're drunk because after every few words in parentheses, they go, hick. Just like the old cartoons, like the how dry I am. Hick. It's that hick. So we know they're drunk because of that. They're all like, happy birthday, George. And they're like, oh my God, he hung himself. They pull him down. He's alive, of course, since he can't seem to die. And he tells his friends, what's up? He's like, I can't seem to die. I've been trying all night. And of course, they're just like worried about it. They think he's crazy. Sounds crazy. And he says, no, I won't be cheated out of death. I'll get a knife. And he runs into this room, locks his friends out. Look at that panel there, that face. That's crazy. And he stabs himself. Once again, feels excruciating pain, but he's not dead, even though there's blood everywhere. His friends break down the door. And it's so weird how, they're still drunk, and this blonde guy is kind of still cracking jokes and stuff. He's like, let's have a party. Instead of being like, oh my God, George, we have to get you to a psychiatric facility. You're our friend. So it's very odd. You're like, what's going on in this story? And George is just listening to them all say these kind of homilies to him, like, you'll never solve anything killing yourself, George. And he says, I got tired of listening to their stupid talk. All I wanted was peace and a grave. So he says, I know, I'm going to jump off the roof. And his friend tries to stop him. And the woman says, why do you keep trying to kill yourself? Why? Because I'm disgusted with life. People are fools, and life is nothing but torture. I'm a failure. Once again, I love that face too. That's a really interestingly drawn face. So he breaks free, and he starts running upstairs so he can jump out the window. And of course, his friends are running behind him saying, George, stop. And one of them finally says, George, you can't die. It's impossible. Don't jump off the roof. You'll just break all your bones, but you'll live. And so George pulls a gun out. And his friend says, listen to me, you fool. And George says, stand back or I'll shoot. And he says, I'm not afraid of that gun, you poor idiot. And George shoots him. And then he says, why won't you die? First it was me and now you can't die. And then I love it. This is so weird how the smoke of the gun turns into a little, I don't know if it's a dimensional portal or just a picture of Satan, like the cartoonish version of the devil that's on like deviled ham and stuff. And his friend says, that's what I've been trying to tell you, George. You can't die because you're already dead. You killed yourself a year ago on your birthday. We're all dead, George, says the blonde. And he realizes the truth. He says, oh my God, I am dead. But then he's so shocked, he falls off the roof. He trips. Look at this crazy panel with the face of the devil. I love this little panel too. This seems like it would be a great tattoo, this little skull head. And as he falls, he just knows that he's never going to be able to have the solace of the grave, even though he's dead. And it's just going to be an eternal mental torture for him. And on top of that, physical torture, every time he hurts himself or tries to kill himself, it hurts. And then look at this last panel. You can only die once. That is such a weird last panel. I love it, though. There's something about that is so cool. Also, really dopey. Like it looks like the balloons are just thrown on there, just randomly covering up like the devil's eye, and all this stuff. But man, what a weird story. Yeah, I was that one wowed me. When I looked at the first page, I was like, oh my God, this comic couldn't even be close to being written, drawn, or published today. It's just so brutal. And also, it's just like, you don't know what the hell's going on for so long. It's like, what is this? But I don't know. I love that story. It's crazy. There's definitely better writers and artists in comics history by far. But stuff like that is just really hits me. Something about its crudity makes it even more just visceral and just like, that's freaking me out. So there you go, guys. I'll try to settle down here. I got all riled up from that story. But we've been looking at, of course, Beware number 5. I hope you liked looking at this with me. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.